I feel like back in college, I was in a fraternity, and you go through like the whole pledge process earlier on, and that kind of sucks. But you build camaraderie with your clear class, right? And then you become like, a year later, and you get to be like the one who doesn't have to go through that. And so going through the rush process with like the younger guys is a lot of fun. And so the fraternities do a lot of events over summer for we call them rush events. And man, I literally wasn't able to do really like more than like one rush event the entire summer because I was doing college works.
Welcome to the show. This is one to share with your friends. Hit that share button, hit that subscription button. We got a person that summited all the 7 summits. That's the highest peak on every continent. He's talking about what it takes to be the most excellent. He's also in medical device sales, and he's going to talk about the path and how to excel there. And we tie them both together because he trains so much. It seems easy when he does it, and he's going to tell you how. Welcome to the show. Send it to your friends. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Nate, thank you so much for coming off the mountain, coming out of the real estate ventures, walking away from medical device sales for a few minutes to share your wisdom. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. College Works was pretty monumental for me back when I was, 18, 19. And, some of my friends that I made during that internship have been in their weddings now. And, here we are 20 years later. They're some of my lifelong friends. It's really kind of guided me, the College Works internship down a path to end up kind of where I am now. And, yeah, excited to be here and hope I can say some words of wisdom and help someone else out. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. And College Works does pay for it. So shout out to College Works. But the audience is worldwide, and you bring something to any audience. And I know I don't know if this is certain, but I don't believe that there is any way there is any other College Works alumni, even though there's 25, 30,000 of them that have summited the 7 summits of the world, the highest peaks on every continent. I know there's people in medical device sales, but you seem to have been excelling in medical device sales and real estate investing. And we're going to get into the 7 summits and award-winning medical device sales and real estate investing. But before we do, I got to ask you the same question I ask everybody else. Yeah. Nate Douglas, what is your definition of excellence?
I think, definition of excellence, I think starts with expanding your comfort zone. You're not going to, really excel or achieve massive wins unless you're actually getting yourself out of your comfort zone. So I think to summarize, kind of expand your comfort zone, persisting and having the discipline to keep going when normal humans would not or would not want to, and then just making success happen and wins happen no matter what the cost. And I think if you have those 3 key ingredients, you're going to be able to accomplish a lot in life, regardless of what you want to do.
And it's real easy to compare those to climbing Mount Everest. Definitely out of your comfort zone, deadly.
100%, yeah.
I wouldn't even try, and I'm pretty athletic. So normal humans, I don't even know what would happen to me on top of that hill with no oxygen, and then making success happen, whatever the cost. It definitely applies to that, but you apply that also to medical device sales, to being a real estate investor. And we're going to get into expanding the comfort zone and persisting professionally when normals don't. We're going to talk about all the awards. And what I like most is controlling your time and chasing your passions while you excel at work, because this mountain climbing sure sucks up a lot of time from what
Absolutely.
I've read, not from what I've done, and achieving the impossible. We're going to get into that. Before I do, I want to go way back to the start. And were you always up in Seattle your whole life?
Yeah, I have been. I was born in Washington, D.C., but was just over there for a year, and then have been in Seattle pretty much since I was like 2.
Okay. So let's go back to not the start, not to the birth, but let's look at high school. What was life like in high school? Did you know you wanted to do medical device sales? What was your path that you saw, and what was going on to get you into college?
Yeah. So my dad's a double board certified physician. My mom's a nurse, and so I actually went to college to do pre med and thought I was going to be a doctor as well. And this internship at College Works totally shifted me towards business and sales. And the success that I had there pretty early on really shifted me. High school was great, man. I played football. I played soccer my whole life growing up. Broke my collarbone playing tackle football, no pads at a church retreat freshman year in high school. And I was like, all right, well, I lost my position on the team because I was out for like 6 or 8 weeks recovering from that. Was down in the weight room lifting, and the football coach is like, "Hey, you should come out and play football." Because I was like squatting like 300 as like a freshman, just had like really strong legs, and so I went on and played football in high school, and loved it. Had a good group of friends. Went to UW, and man, the College Works internship. One of my buddies in my fraternity found out about it, and he's like, "Man, you should check this out." And so I did, and I was like, my grandpa was kind of an entrepreneur in like the real estate and some other things, and so I feel like that's kind of been in my blood, and I always wanted to segue into that, but I just never really knew like what business or how to go about it. And so College Works, just running your own franchise, your own business, essentially was a perfect framework for someone who's 18 with no experience, to do something that they've never done before and have no idea how it's going to work out. And yeah, that just really the success I had early on in that program made me just be like, you know what, I really don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to go into something with business. And so I mean that's kind of the start.
And I think that's a pretty similar site. I wanted to be a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. I tend to pass out. So that's not
Mm,
going to work. Then I wanted to
fair.
be a lawyer because I had the gift of gab, but I hate school and I don't hate school. I didn't love writing papers to pacify a professor that had a
Oh,
different opinion to
100%.
me. I don't do well with exactness and perfection, except for in my personal physical look. And I was going to have a hard time law. So I think that most people listening right now, they have an idea of where they're going, and you're probably not going to end up there. But if you're aiming high and you're shooting for the stars, you'll end up somewhere up there. And going to UW, it's a hard school to get into. When you're in high
100%.
school, you played football. Were you geared up all of high school? Oh, I've got to get into a good school. If I don't get into a good school, I'm not going to have a good life. I got to get into a good school. I got to get a good job, a good internship so I can get a good job. Were you thinking that way? Or was it less purposeful and you still ended up at a great school?
It was really the first option right there. I mean, where it was something that was really important to me for a really long time, and just coming from like a medical family with like a doctor and a nurse, I mean, they're really big into education and that being a priority. So much so that in high school they didn't want me working; they wanted me focusing on grades. And so, yeah, I mean, even in college, they didn't want me working during the year. They wanted me focusing on my schoolwork and everything. So that was a battle I had to overcome to go on to College Works. Yeah, I mean, ever since I was in probably middle school or junior high, I really wanted to get into a good college, and really wanted because I felt that was a way to set up my success later in life, and it kind of all starts with that. So yeah.
And I hear that all the time. It's such a bad idea, such a bad, especially nowadays
Hmm.
when employers most focus mostly on what your resume is, your work resume. And to get into college, you need your extracurriculars, you need your clubs, you need your charitable, you need your
Yeah.
grades, you need your test scores. And maybe getting into college, your job experience is the ninth or 10th thing on the list of 10 on your application. But coming out of college, you're totally screwed if you didn't work in the summers. You're totally
Yeah.
screwed if
Yeah.
you didn't have an internship. And so many parents are focused on grades because that's how it was when they were kids. And
Hmm.
now, thank God it wasn't that way when I was a kid. So you knew I got to do well in school. I got to do what it takes to get into a good school. Education's important to my family and important to me. So you got to that point. You went to UW, and I don't know if you're like me. I'm just not a science person. I'm not an. I
Yeah.
mean, the same person that becomes a lawyer becomes an engineer, becomes a biologist. That's not how I think. I mean, I think I'm a
100%.
sales. I'm a driver influencer, and so you were going down that path, and then just serendipitously came across the college works thing where you got to practice that other side. And not that people that are going to be doctors shouldn't do college works because they've got to lead people and they've got to manage people and they got to get that work experience too. But for you and
Exactly.
me, we changed the path. So you did college works. You were manager of the year, right?
It was nominated for it. Yeah, Josh Metzger, who I'm still friends with to this day. We talk kind of regularly. He's doing sales too in tech. And so, yeah, I mean, he's the one who won, but I was nominated. So I think I finished like number three, I want to say, on that year or so.
Right,
It was a good year.
right over there on my bookshelf, my plaque with not a BB hole because I didn't use a bullet. I wish I would have done a bullet and blown the whole thing up, but a
Yeah.
couple BB dings in it. because I got the nominee and not the winner award, and that has pissed me off for life. And it sits right there when I'm looking at it at all times. Be the best, not the second or third best. So you got that piss off moment just like I did.
Dude, 100%. And just like you, it's bugged me my entire career.
Yeah.
Like I am just like, damn it, I didn't win that, right? And it's funny, we got this. Hold on a second.
You got the mug.
Yeah, I got the mug, man. It's
What year? What year?
2005.
2005.
2005. Yeah, College Pay. Imagine a year nominee. It's on my trophy shelf with all my other career awards and everything, sales awards and stuff, plaques, president's clubs and stuff. Yeah.
See that? See the little hole in it at the bottom?
Oh yeah. You shot a BB gun at it.
I'm not a very good aim, but that nominee word just drives me crazy. Like,
Yeah, me too. It really bugged me too.
not
So
the well,
yeah.
good. Don't waste a solid chip on your shoulder. And how many people do you know that have something like that in their life just invigorated them? I have a buddy, Craig Atkins, that always says, "Don't let a solid chip on your shoulder go to waste."
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah.
kind of one of the things that drove you. So you did
Oh yeah.
you did the college works thing, and then you only did it as a manager 1 year, right? You didn't,
Yeah.
and
It
then
is a
what?
manager. Thought about doing it as like a DM, but yeah, my parents influenced a little bit, wanted me to really focus on school and whatnot. And since they're paying the bills for college, I guess, acquiesce a bit. And so the next 2 summers, what I found from College Works, I really like the managing side of stuff, but I also really like the sales side of things, like the negotiation, the convincing them to go from hello to essentially PO. You're a complete stranger, and in an hour or two, they're having you paint, they're giving you a deposit to paint like their most important asset in their life usually.
Yeah.
It was really cool going through that, basically complete strangers to customers, friends, and them trusting you. And so I love that. And so I actually went and sold, I posted my resume on Monster, and got some hits for some summer jobs. So I went and sold luxury hot tubs for 2 summers. And I tell you what, it was awesome because college works, you're running around like crazy, knocking on doors. Hey, my name's Nate Douglas. I'm a student at University of Washington, doing some house painting, doing a house painting internship. Where if you're looking at how many paint dollars this year, and they're like, I still have it memorized, man. Like 20 years later,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, so, and if they're like, yes, like awesome, your name and number, I'll get you down for an estimate. And if they're like, no, I'm like, okay, here's a flyer. You're running to the next house,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I remember all that, man. And the selling the luxury hot tubs, like I sold like a 250,000 worth of those things. I think in that first summer, and I made like good amount of money just selling. But customers, it was inside sales essentially. So customers came into there, and it was the first time where I got like a base salary. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get $1,500 a month, whether or not I sell anything. Like, and then I'm getting like a grand every hot tub I'm selling at least. And so I'm like, damn, there's people that work as waitresses that make like 3 or 4 grand a year, busting their butts and putting up with crappy, stuff all the time and making really no money. And I'm like, here I am, an opportunity to, not make as much as I did at college. I think I made like 14 or 15 grand that second summer, and I made I think 21 grand my summer at College Works. But yeah, I went into sales then, and then the next year they asked me to come back, so I went back again, kind of did the same thing again, and then I was like, man, I feel like the sales is a little bit cookie cutter, and so I really wanted to branch out, and I hadn't heard about like B2B sales, complex sales, multiple decision makers, Spin, Huthwaite, and all that yet. Those training programs on just getting multiple decision makers across multiple specialties to all agree to buy your stuff. So I took winter quarter off. We had at college and my advertising, I was in the business school. So in our advertising class, this VP from DDB, Doyle Dane Bernbach, came in and judged all our final presentations. And she really liked my teams. And, afterwards I went up to her and said, hey, I'm really looking for an internship, right in advertising just to see what it's like and, see if it's something that might be a fit for me. And here's why I think I could be good at it. And so she put me in touch with their HR person, had an informational interview. And apparently, I'm able to talk about college works at every single interview. I still talk about it now, with jobs now about like what got you into sales and everything. And apparently after my info, she goes, this is an informational interview. We currently don't have any internships available. This is just to see, if you'd be a fit and if something does come up, if it might work out. Like, okay, cool. So I just went through, told her about college works, everything about it. A little bit about the hot tub stuff that I've done and kind of why I think advertising is where I want to go next. And apparently, after that interview, she just ran out this resume to every single director at DDB. I was like, does anybody need an intern right now? Like, I got this kid who is like awesome. He's like driven. He's like ambitious. I think he's going to be a great fit. So their biggest account was Microsoft, and apparently the account director from Microsoft, he went to UW, was in a fraternity there too, and he hit me up and he's like, "Dude, let's grab coffee." He's like, we could use you on my team, as an internship. I'd love to have you on the team. Let's see if this would be a good fit." So anyway, so I took winter quarter off to intern full time, unpaid. 40 hours a week, unpaid for an entire quarter of college. Right?
Mm, mm.
And what I learned doing that was that I can't sit at a desk all day and do
So
reports and
the
motivate it.
the experience is cool, but it
Yeah,
wasn't the experience you needed. So by doing, you kind of figured out what you did need.
exactly. Yeah. And so, getting these different experiences, like, I mean, if someone does college works and they realize it's not for them, at least they know it's not for them versus
Yeah,
doing it later in life, like a wife and kid or something, and trying
yeah,
to start their
yeah.
own business and then just flopping, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, doing the advertising thing, I felt it was a good opportunity because I felt you could sell ideas, meet with business people. It was a bit more white collar than, selling hot tubs, right? Which I'd done, the previous 2 summers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't sit at a desk, man. My energy, my drive and everything, that's just not me. And so, yeah, I had final interviews with Microsoft and Siemens out of college. Well, this is actually kind of funny. So I had final interviews set up with Microsoft. That was another one. This guy from Microsoft came, gave a presentation. Afterwards, I went and talked to him and said, "Hey, I think I'd be a really good fit, for sales in the digital advertising space. Here's my sales experience. What opportunities do you have?" And they actually had an opening for one. So I had final interviews set up for Microsoft before I even graduated. And I was like, I remember sitting in my fraternity live out room and the career fair was going on. And I was like, "Oh man, I already got final interviews set up with Microsoft. It's like a lock. Like, I don't need to go to the career fair." And I was like, "You know what? I'm a senior. It's my last one. I might as well." So I got my resumes, threw my suit and tie on, and went there. Stopped at a couple booths, and there's this one for Siemens Building Technologies. Siemens, like electrical engineering, building
Well,
infrastructure company out of Germany, and they had this outside sales role with a new program they were calling their sales development program. So they were going to take what they felt were like 32 of like the top, graduates from around the country and turn them into complex white collar salespeople. So basically, take all the experience that I had before, and then turn it into the Huthway, the spin selling, all those kind of complex sales, white collar sales experience. Yeah, it was a great experience. I was selling fire alarm and life safety systems into hospitals, new installs, retrofits, service agreements. They gave me a mentor. It was an intense 6 month training program. And so, my college works experience like really set me up. Because, like I said, that's what I talk about. Because there's so many different things you can talk about from that, from the sales side of it to trying something you've never done before, to having people work for you, to dealing with like upset customers, to, still enjoying life as a college kid, but then going out there and running between houses, doing estimates. I mean, spilling paint all over your mom's minivan. Like everything you do during college works. She still gives me crap about that to this day. Right?
so when you thank God we didn't have this
Yeah.
when you were here, but we have an app and
Mhm.
they walk around and they get their leads on the app now. And it measures, how many doors they knocked on, what time they started, what time they stopped. But
Yeah.
it also measures how far they went.
Oh, no way.
Guess how far? I wouldn't say average, but guess about what if you're gonna go do like a full weekend and you're gonna do the full first weekend. And by the way, they get like 60 leads. In the first weekend, they'll get more than half the way there to 100 grand. The average manager does over 100 grand now, which is crazy.
Wow,
Um,
that's amazing. The average
yeah,
one does.
yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess
Guess
I am. I'm getting kind of old. I'm 38 now. So 20 years ago,
yeah,
man, I did like
double all the
86
numbers.
grand.
Double
Yeah.
all the numbers. So that's 175, and you really made 41. But guess
Wow.
how
Yeah.
far you walked your first weekend? Because I
How
know.
far? Yeah.
What would you guess?
Oh man. 4 miles?
18 miles.
What? No way. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
more than half a marathon. Are you kidding me?
We have DMs that like they kind of it's kind of bragging rights, but
Yeah.
25, 28 miles. Yeah.
Like literally like a
And
marathon.
they
That's
do jog.
insane.
I took my
Yeah.
son to a training because he's a California kid, grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, and I took him to a training and we went
Yeah.
to Minnesota and it was like snowing. And I'm like, guys, we can't send people out. Yes, we can. And they just go, go, go. It doesn't matter. And the
Yeah.
idea is if it's snowing, everyone's home. And so
Yeah.
like people will get 70, 80, 90. I mean, out of out of all the people that we went to the training, more than half of them got 35 leads in their first weekend
That's
because it was
amazing.
snowing and
Wow.
they're jogging. It's absolutely baffling. So let me just
Yeah.
get your path down here. You want to
Yeah.
be a doctor. You
Hmm.
you went and did the management internship at College Works. Then
Yep.
you went into sales. Then you
Hmm.
went into this more complicated sales.
Yep.
Then you went into um, the more complicated sales was at Siemens, right?
Yep. Yep.
You made sure that it seems like these places you went had these development programs. CollegeWorks is a development program. Some of the big corporations have these development programs. So you're finding places to work that are going to keep training you.
Yeah.
I do have to flag that you totally ignored your parents, thank God, and
Yeah.
left school to go work because it was the work experience that got you the job at Siemens, not the school
100%.
experience, right? And then
Yeah. Yeah.
how did you jump from Siemens into medical device sales?
Yeah, I always wanted to do med device sales, and I never wanted to start as like an associate rep or like a clinical rep or anything like that. I wanted to go straight into a full line sales rep, territory sales manager kind of thing. And in order to do that, you need to have B2B sales experience and show some success in sales, having a quota, getting numbers, showing results for at least a couple years. So I did, and I had some friends in med device sales. They put me in touch with some recruiters, and was able to get recruited into there. And my first med device sales job pretty much was Stryker, one of the big five, big four medical device companies. And it was a blast, man. I got to sell devices throughout the entire hospital, got to work with surgeons, and I was able to take. It was a lot of going into new accounts, kind of like we are doing at College Works all the time, right? Walking into houses, meeting customers, going basically from like complete stranger to making relationships with these people, and then having them trust you and your technology enough to where they're actually using it to save a patient's life. Right?
From hello to PO. I like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like
Hello
that.
to PO. Yeah, yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes in med device, there's a VA. I was able to get a six-figure PO from them for some rapid infusers. A couple of years ago in like 4 business days. But typically, it's like with capital sales in the hospital arena, it's like 6 months to a year and a half sales cycle.
And what
Sometimes,
were you
yeah.
selling?
I was selling. So right now, I'm selling a rapid infuser for a company called Belmont Medical. One thing I learned throughout my career, I've worked at big companies. I worked at like Stryker. I worked at Johnson and Johnson. Top performing rep. Every company I've been at, and I just like the autonomy and the less bureaucracy of like just smaller, mid-sized companies. And so Belmont, you have more flexibility. They got cooler technology because it's like these big companies almost where innovation goes to die. It's like they get so big that like they get this new technology and then they just like destroy it and kill it and like demotivate everybody, right? So yeah, so Belmont's been great. At Stryker, I was selling harmonic scalpels, some orthopedic burrs and blades. We had some compression sleeves and other things, just into the OR. So I was in on surgeries, into the EP lab. We sold electrophysiology catheters. And so just a bunch of different devices that gave me a lot of exposure to a lot of different areas of the hospital,
Would
which
you
is good.
recommend that someone starting off, even if they want to get away from the bureaucracy, might start with a Striker or one of those big firms just because of their development program?
Yeah, 100%. The train at the big companies typically always going to be better. And if you start your career at a big company, you can always go smaller. But sometimes it's harder to go from a smaller company up to a bigger one. And so, yeah, that's kind of essentially what my career trajectory is. What I'd recommend to other people is try to get on with a big company, first, and then go smaller after that for sure.
And the
Yeah.
path to the big company was small companies. You did College Works, you did the hot tubs, then you got to the big company. So it's that
Yeah.
right out of college, training's really solid. People want people from big companies in their smaller company because they know you've been trained and developed. You want, and
Exactly.
there are a lot of people that love the big companies and stay forever. In fact, I had a guest on right
Yeah.
before you in pharmaceutical sales,
Okay.
similar, started with a big company. Stayed with the big company for a long time and then now
Wow.
has moved to a startup. My brother started at Microsoft. He was chief of staff and then went
Wow.
down smaller and smaller and smaller in tech. That's a good point to take away if you're listening right now. You got to get experience in college. Don't listen to your mom and dad. Go out
Yeah.
and work your ass off because you're
Yep.
not going to get hired without it.
No.
You're going to turn in 100 resumes before you probably get your first interview. A lot of
Yeah.
people, unless you have incredible experience. And then you get into figure out what your passion was, and then you realize what I don't like, and you can look for other businesses that have what your passion is and don't have what you don't like. So
Mhm.
you kind of gave us a little education on what medical device sales is.
Mhm.
You're building relationships, you said. You're coming in and meeting people, making friends, building trust because that's who you are deep down. You can't do this if you're not that normal, if you're not that person.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
fake that you care. If you're a narcissist, it's not going to work. You got to
No.
be that right character and cultural fit.
Yeah.
Um, and you'll be gone in days if you don't. Um,
Yeah.
so you're doing maybe you're doing not as much marketing now, but in the beginning, you're marketing, you're banging on doors, you're meeting
Mhm.
people, you're generating some revenue. You're probably also working on retaining customers, going out with them, making sure they know that your technology is getting better and that the newest technology is not going to be better. What am I
Yeah.
missing in medical device sales that people need to know?
Yeah, it's really, really strategic sale. So you have to get multiple decision makers across the entire hospital. So, for instance, for my rapid infuser that I'm selling, the Belmont Rapid Infuser, we've grown like crazy the past 3 or 4 years. We're now at 90% of level one traumas. So if you're in a car accident or you're getting shot, stabbed, and bleeding out, you want the rapid infuser. It's the best rapid infuser. It's going to save your life. And it basically warms up blood that's frozen and rapidly infuses it back into you. And it has like a lot of different things, from like air embolism protection and some other stuff that I won't get into on the podcast. It's a little
Yeah,
too
but if
technical.
you do
Yeah.
that wrong, you're in big trouble.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, there's a reason why. I mean, every hospital in my region, from Harborview to OHSU to Legacy Emmanuel is now using Belmonts. Every single level one trauma, 26 out of 27 level two traumas. Like 80% of the level three traumas, and dozens of smaller hospitals. So it's awesome. But the way to sell it is you have to get the OR on. So you have to get an anesthesiologist, you have to get the CRNA who's using it, you got to get the OR director. So you have to meet with all these different people and get each one of them their own win. And then you also have to get the ICU on board, so the intensivist, so the ICU director, to the nurses who are going to be using it. And then you also got to get the labor and delivery department on board, and so you got to get all these different departments, as well as the trauma, obviously the emergency department. They're a big driver, obviously, and so the trauma surgeons and the ED directors. You have to get all them on board. And once they all agree, okay, this technology we want to bring into the entire hospital, because they won't decide on something like this just for one department, because this is going to impact a lot of different departments. So you really got to get all these different people that you've never met before, and make friends with them, show them the technology, but you got to make sure that, well, take a step back. When I was at Siemens, they did a big study on all their top performers. And they wanted to figure out what separates their top performers from the non top performers. And what they came back with, like the major deciding factor, was the top performers knew where to spend their time. And they were spending their time with decision makers. And that is one thing that has always stood with me. Because if you're the rep who's just making friends with everybody and you're really friendly, but you're not closing any business and you're not talking to decision makers, you're just a professional visitor and you're just making friends and not generating any revenue or money for yourself. And so, to be successful in sales, typically you have to be making relationships with the right people. And so, yeah, there are, you do have to, buddy buddy with some nurses here and there and whatnot, but really the directors and the physicians are the people that are going to be making the decisions. And so then I'll jump back to where I was. So once all those people agree on bringing this technology into the hospital, that's great. We're 3 to 4 times as expensive as the next closest rapid infuser. And that's kind of been the single thing for like my entire career, even with college works. I've always sold a premium product at a premium price because that's what we deserve, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's great. Everybody wants a Ferrari, but who's going to pay? Everybody wants a BMW, but who's going to pay for it, right? Exactly, right? Yeah. I will, yeah. And so, yeah, so then you got to get the CFO on board because he's the one who's going to be cutting the check. Oh, no way, man. Look at that. What color? What color is it?
I have car weaknesses,
Okay.
and I have an investment, a poor investment that I've made in my life. So I tried to buy something that wasn't going to lose value,
Fair.
and so I got a 1971 Ferrari
That's
because
sick.
they don't go down in value; they go up in value. Um,
Yeah, smart.
and it's red tan, of course.
Oh, red and tan. Nice.
And then
Dope.
I also drive a BMW because those are my two favorites. But back
Oh,
to your
yeah. Yeah,
point,
for sure.
premium product at a premium price.
Hmm.
And you said a couple things there. The top performers know where to spend their time with decision makers, but this kind of going against who you are, right? You're just a nice guy. You want to help everybody. It's kind of self control. I need to
Yeah.
invest my time. And I got lots of friends that are nurses. You got lots of friends that are nurses. My mom's a nurse. Your mom's a nurse. You said
Yeah.
your mom's a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got lots of friends that don't buy things from us. We're social people helping people out all the time, but you got to control yourself when you're in this big time sales, whether it's technology sales, pharmaceutical sales, medical device sales, control yourself and invest your time with those decision makers. And it sounds like you said it was a 6 month sales cycle. You're
Mhm.
going out, and I want to come back to each one needs a win. So
Yeah.
I think in life, you're probably, and we'll get into your mountain climbing, you probably take a couple buddies because they need a win. You
Yeah.
probably go speak at high schools to give them their little win. So you're finding why the operating room doctor is going to win from this, why the patient's going to win from this, why the
Yeah.
cardiovascular people are going to win from this. And you're having these conversations to get people to understand why they should pay 2 to 3 times more
Yeah.
all the time, right? That's what you're doing in
Yeah.
medical device sales. And if you're working for the one that's cheaper, then you're talking about, whoa, 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 you don't need those benefits, save yourself
Yeah.
money, which in medical device sales seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, it does for sure, but you'd be surprised. I mean, getting capital from hospitals is darn near impossible post-COVID. Hospitals really got hit really hard. So you really have to create champions that really believe in your technology and want it so bad that they're willing to jump and scream for it. And so that when you can actually get someone bought in that much to where they're risking their political capital is kind of what we call it, to really push for those dollars to go to their department and their technology and this technology, is a really cool thing when it happens. And it's like it's a celebration when it all gets approved. Like the nurses are happy because it makes their job so much easier. The physicians are happy because like it makes the patient's outcomes much better. And I mean, it's just awesome going in there after it gets approved and the money's released. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to when you win. Yeah,
It's almost like an art. It's artistic. You're painting a picture of the future if they make this decision, and
one hundred
probably if they
percent.
make the other decision too, but focused on the positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times they're using a rapid infuser currently. That rapid infuser has issues, right? Like maybe it's really complex to set up and they're having issues setting it up. Maybe there's only one or two people in the entire hospital who really know how to run the thing and they're never there at night when a trauma victim comes in. Right? Maybe they had an air embo happen, or maybe they blew like a line in an IV, right? Because the pressure wasn't set right. So there's like a lot of different things, you really got to probe for that pain with the customers, kind of like you do in like college works a bit, right back when, and uncover that pain and then go to, get them their win that's going to fix that, right? And then make them imagine life and how bad it would be if they just stuck with what they had, or if they went with a cheaper option, how good it could be if they just go this route, which is the best, right? Get
Yeah.
them that win.
And if you're
Yeah.
listening right now, remember he wanted to be a doctor, decided not to. Um, Went into selling paint jobs and hot tubs, then went into selling security. I call it security, but fire security, these other
Yeah.
security systems. So you're dabbling, trying, dabbling, trying, dabbling, trying. You come
Yeah.
back almost full circle. You're back
Yeah.
in the medical arena. And
Yep.
then, if you're winning all these awards and being number one and going on all the president's clubs, you're also
Mhm.
getting paid a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that got you back to, you said it was your grandfather was an entrepreneur in the real estate business.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, he was. Yeah. He's pretty successful. So
So
yeah,
that
it's
was
pretty
kind
cool.
of setting in the back of your mind, and you decided to use some of your income to invest, and you decided to invest in real estate. So tell us what you do in real estate.
Yeah, so I have some some influences from some family members that are successful, real estate developers that have been good mentors for me. I got my real estate license back when I was 19 because I knew I wanted to invest in real estate, and so I bought my first piece of real estate when I was 23. So less than a year, and I graduated college. I bought a condo in downtown Seattle, yeah, still own it and rent it out now. Got like a view of Lake Union, got a hot tub on the roof. Man, that was fun living there in my 20s,
You did you put the hot tub on the roof?
No, the
They
hot
already
tub's
had
like,
it. They
it's
already had
part of the condo
it.
complex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's got like a panoramic view from like, I don't know if you've been to Seattle, from Gasworks all the way to like the Space Needle in downtown Lake
You
Union.
don't know if I've been
Uh,
to Seattle. I've seen you in Seattle.
that's true. That's true. That is true. Yeah.
I used to have
That's
a
very
house on
true.
Orcas Island for 25 years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful up there, man. I got my pilot cert back in December and just flew
Oh
to the
shit.
San Juans. Yeah, and just flew to the San Juans actually a couple weekends ago to grab brunch, just for the hell of it on like a Sunday. It
So
was a lot of fun. Yeah.
so you
But,
took this success, you
mhm,
started that you bought a condo, decided not to sell it, you rent it out, and you realize, oh,
yeah,
that's good. And so are
yeah.
you investing in residential real estate now?
Yeah, so I actually have like a handful of properties I own myself. I bought in a couple foreclosures that have flipped into rentals. I have a lot that I'm developing up in Linwood with a couple duplexes.
And
So a
you'll rent
vacant
that
lot
out
that
too?
yeah, I'll probably sell those actually to so actually gonna build two duplexes on it and sell it. I'm finishing the subdivision right now. I got the short plat approval, preliminary short plat approval, my LDA, which allows me to dig and build to finish the subdivision. And then I resubmit that to the county. And then after that, I'm able to build the duplexes on it. My plan is to sell those duplexes, but it's gonna make me that property will have made me close to $2 million profit when it's all said and done.
And
It was a good
do you
investment.
usually buy and sell or build and sell, or do you usually buy and hold and rent?
I usually buy and hold and rent, but the place that this is in up in Linwood is a pretty good opportunity. The builder and developer I'm using are doing almost the exact same design. We're going to use the exact same design, like literally less than 2 miles away,
Mm.
and so they're going to get some economies of scale. They're a couple of my good friends as well too, and so yeah, we're going to work together on it, and it's just going to make it a lot more profitable, which is pretpretty cool.
So you're
And
using
then
your analytical mind to decide, okay, I got a bunch more money into this than normal. I'd like to get my cash out because I think
100%.
I'm gonna get a bigger win if I take it out now than if I leave it in.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the beauties about real estate is like the 1031 exchange, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is the ability to basically not pay any capital gains tax when you
Mhm.
sell a property for profit and roll that immediately into another property. So you can immediately pay zero taxes and increase your net worth like instantaneously when you buy another property. And then also own a 37 unit apartment building with one of my climbing buddies and a couple other friends and business partners. And so that's down in Burien, and yeah, that does pretty well. That's just kind of like a cash cow kind of thing. Just cycles, does its own thing. My buddy's the asset manager for it, and then we have a property management company. So it's kind of hands off, but it was a good investment as well. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I'm looking as soon as I finish building this lot, I'm looking on 1031 exchanging that into I don't know, probably like a anywhere from a $5 to an $8 million like apartment building, somewhere down in Pierce County, probably because the cap rates are better down there. But yeah, and so that's kind of how I've segued into real estate while still keeping my day job. My goal would be honestly, like I love sales because I set my own schedule and I've always been successful. So management typically leaves me alone. And so, you got to get up and go to work every day and work really hard. But when you're successful at sales and you're efficient and you're getting wins, you're able to make other things happen in your life as well.
Yeah, well, there's
And
164 hours in a week. So
yeah,
you're selling 50 hours a week, and there's
yeah,
still 114 hours left. And
yeah.
so 20 something years to become the master of medical device sales. How long have you spent in the real estate world?
Like I
Well,
said,
since
I
you were
got
19. Since you're
well,
19.
yeah,
Yeah.
I got my license when I was 19, and then I didn't activate it just because honestly, like I just didn't even think about it. Still in college, but I activated it when I was 22, and then bought my first piece of real estate at 23. So I actually had to take the real estate test twice because it expires after 2 years. I didn't know that, so I had to go back and retake it again.
Yeah.
Right? But so I took it twice and passed it twice. Obviously, if I got my license, so yeah. But yeah, I definitely recommend everybody get their real estate license. I mean, for me, I'm just like an A-type self-starter.
Why get the license?
For me, I like doing stuff myself because one, I feel like I'm better at doing things myself than a lot of other people, especially if I'm passionate about it. And I don't want to have to rely on someone else to show me properties or send me properties or let me inside. I just want to go do it
It's
on my own
quicker,
time. Yeah,
faster, better.
exactly, 100%. And then you get commission when you sell a property to yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, it generates tons of tax write-offs. Right, which is great. So, yeah, a huge fan of real estate. So, yeah,
And
that's kind of how I got into that.
your real estate career is similar to your sales career, based on relationships, based on delivering value, based on sincerely caring about the people you're working with. You said
Yeah.
the builders are your buddies, the investor groups are your buddies, the people you're
Mhm.
in business with are your buddies. And it's the
Yeah.
same. If you're listening right now, if you're going to go into sales and you're going to go into, this type of real estate,
Mhm.
this relationship based real estate, You got to genuinely be into that. If you're not into that, the wrong career.
Mhm,
And I want to get into the mountain climbing because you've got three legs to your stool. You get the
mhm.
medical device, you got the real estate, and then you've got the extracurricular, which for you is pretty wacky extracurricular. I guess there's multiple legs to that. You fly planes, you climb
Yeah.
mountains. What
I mean, if
got
it
you?
could, if it could, if it can kill me, I'm interested in it. Pretty much is what I've
Okay,
learned in life.
okay.
Yeah.
What was the first of the seven summits you did? When was it, and how the hell did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, I think to answer that, I kind of go back to the first mountain I climbed. I grew up in Seattle, looking at Mount Rainier, my entire life. Always wanted to climb it. Never really got around to doing it until like I turned 30. I said, "This is the year that I am going to climb Mount Rainier," which seems a little bit late. You think it would have been earlier, right? And so that was in 2016, and I had plans to go climb Rainier in August of that year. My dad passed away in June of that year, pretty suddenly, and so that was tough to go through. And I was on a hike through the enchantments, and I met a guy who's now a business partner, one of my best climbing friends. On that hike, who's friends of a friend, and he takes new climbers up Rainier every year, just for free, just because he loves doing it and loves getting that win for someone else, right, and having that life experience for others. And so, he took me up July, and I think everybody should climb at least one mountain in their life. Mount Rainier is a great one, but there's other ones like Hood and Baker and whatnot. But it's just a riveting, life-altering experience being on top of a mountaintop after you push yourself, and everything that you see with your own eyes, and the endorphins and dopamine that you get from being up there, just persevering and making it happen. It's phenomenal. But then I took my dad's ashes with me too up there. So I took some of his ashes and spread because it was his favorite mountain. We grew up with golden retrievers. We named them after mountains. We had Rainier, Shasta, McKinley, right? So mountains were kind of near and dear to us. And so it was his favorite mountain. So I spread some of his ashes on the summit. Beautiful summit day. I mean, perfect visibility. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so I think, when you already get to the top of a mountain for the first time, it's already pretty emotionally riveting. And then when you also take your dad's, ashes up there too, it makes it even more emotionally pretty I mean, impactful to you as a human, I think. And the first time I did Rainier, I trained really, really hard, and when I felt it was easier than I was expecting, which I loved because I saw other people struggling and getting sick and all that. And lucky for me, I don't really get altitude sickness, which has been phenomenal, and that's kind of why I keep climbing mountains. It makes it a bit more fun when you're not feeling like you're going to throw up constantly. And so then I liked it so much, I went and climbed it again a month later, summited it again, and I didn't get sick or anything. So then it became this kind of game for me of I wanted to see how fast and how high I could go before I got sick. Right? Not stupidly like go at it, but I want to climb higher mountain, do it at like a good pace, and expand my experience in my comfort zone, and just try different mountains. So I like flew down to Ecuador and climbed some volcanoes down in Ecuador in the Andes. 6,000-meter peaks down there. And my buddy Harrison, who took me up Rainier the first time, he'd done Denali before. He wants to do the seven summits. For me, I hadn't really made a goal of doing the seven summits in my life. It kind of happened through others' influences, which is kind of an important thing. You want to make sure you surround yourself with the right people, because you never know who's going to influence your life for the better or for the worse. And so, yeah, he's been a great influence for me, in climbing and in real estate. But yeah, anyways, he was going to do Aconcagua. He's like, "Nate, let's go, let's do it." And so we signed up to do Aconcagua in 2020. COVID hits, couldn't do it then. Aconcagua is around 23,000 feet. It's one of the seven summits, and it's the highest mountain in the world outside the Himalaya. And so you can't climb a 7,000-meter peak unless you're literally over in like the Himalaya Karakoram range. And so we signed up in 2020. COVID happened. We had to cancel it. So we signed up in 2021, and then I got COVID a week before we had to leave, symptomatic COVID. And so luckily, it ended up healing itself soon enough. And I took my PCR test immediately, to where Argentina required you to have a PCR test for like 10 days before you could enter the country, and be like symptom free for like 5 days. And I just made that cutoff to fly out on like New Year's Eve. So I spent New Year's Eve on like a business class flight using Alaska airline miles, from like Miami down to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And basically went and climbed the highest mountain in the world outside the Himalaya, 2 weeks after having symptomatic COVID, which is
Yeah.
kind of wild. So that was my first one.
So just back to your relationships and the harvesting of relationships. The
Yeah.
harvesting of relationships kind of led you. down your professional path, the
Mhm.
harvesting of relationships led you into the real estate world. You're just constantly learning from your friends. You are the sum of your five closest friends. But this guy,
100%.
you met him climbing, so you had the guts to talk to him while you're climbing.
Yeah, for sure.
You met him on a hike. He then wanted to do something with you that was out of your comfort zone, and you said, expand your comfort zone, persist with normal humans would not, make success
Yeah.
happen, whatever the cost. You take the
Yeah.
chance to climb Rainier, and then you got this
Mhm.
kind of stranger dude that you know that you're becoming friends with, and he
Yeah.
put you on this seven summits thing. So if you're listening right
Yeah.
now, pay attention to who your friends are and pay
Yeah.
attention to what type of leadership they're giving you because there's just all sorts of serendipitous win. I also want to flag, and I'll probably put this in your intro.
Mhm.
Um, Train so much that it seems easy when you go do it. That
Yeah.
might be the theme of your life. You train so much at college works that the hot tubs were easy. You trained so much between those two, the medical device sales wasn't so hard.
Mhm.
You trained so much through conversations in real estate that you're not losing, you're winning. And you train so
Yeah.
much that you can basically run up Rainier. And I didn't understand this because the reason why you're on the show is because we saw
Mhm.
your Everest
Y
and I don't know if
Yeah.
you said it or we said it or Jake. I think Jake said it. Is that
Mhm.
the first College Works alumni to climb Everest? And I don't know if you are or are not. I'm
Uh-huh.
certain. I mean, if there
Yeah.
are some, there's one or two or three out of 25,000.
Yeah.
Guarantee there's none that have done the seven summits. But you
Yeah.
didn't start doing the seven summits till 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago, yeah. Yeah, and
Wow.
I was able to summit every single one on my first try. My last one in Antarctica, I just got back from in January. And I mean, you have to work with your employer, right? Everybody's like, hey, how'd you get the time off? And it's kind of like an irrelevant question because everybody's employer is going to be different. Everybody's job performance is going to be different. Everybody's boss is going to be different. Everybody's career trajectory is going to be different. So, like, what I did isn't what's going to really help someone else understand how do you make this happen. Right? Like, I mean, for Antarctica, I take unpaid time off, right? Like when I was down there. And so, I mean, we planned on 5 to 9 days snow camping plus 2 or 3 days on each side to get in. So maybe 15 or 16 days. We ended up with the worst weather in 20 years down there to where we flew 8,000 nautical miles to the bottom of the planet from Seattle. And we couldn't fly the extra 250 nautical miles on a 40-minute twin otter flight inside of Antarctica because the weather was so bad that we were stuck for 20 days snow camping for the entire expedition when it should have been 5 to 9, right? And so, yeah, that just like, I mean, makes, conversation to have your employer. Hey, man, I'm stuck in Antarctica. I can't leave and I can't go to the mountain. And I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, Antarctica was, 55 grand, is the cost to go down there and do Vincent. So it's definitely not cheap.
How much
So
was
yeah,
Everest?
Everest, I had some connections in Nepal that were able to, that reached out to me and that I was able to work with to where it was going to be 35 or 45 grand, and I wanted the 45 grand option, but I kind of customized it with some certain things that other people that had done Everest that I had talked to said were kind of necessities, and so I was around $45,000. I want to say, all said and done, maybe 50, 50 to 55 after flights, hotels, the Sherpa tips, that kind of stuff. So
So you spent
yeah.
$250,000 climbing mountains in the last 3 years.
I'd say I actually did. I just added it up. If you're not counting like flights and hotels and tips, I am right around $100,000 in expedition fees, which is actually on like the lower end for the seven summits. Because like, I did them all on my first try. And
Mm.
so, there's a lot of people that, take two or three shots at Denali, maybe two. I mean, this guy who's on an expedition in Everest with me, from Kuala Lumpur down in Malaysia. He had to turn around on the balcony. Just wasn't his day, or for whatever reason, and didn't summit that year. It was his last of the seven summits, and so he came back the next year and was determined to summit. And he went up when there was bad weather, high winds and whatnot, clear day. He ended up losing four fingers and a thumb to frostbite. And has a prosthetic, essentially right hand right now because
Did
of
he
it.
summit?
And he summited though, yeah. Yeah, on Aconcagua, our lead guide of the expedition, Uli, he said something that really stuck with me after that. Because that was a really stressful expedition because it was in the middle of COVID. The Rangers were sending entire teams down if any one single person got COVID on the mountain, and we had about 4 or 5 out of 11 of us got COVID, including three guides, including Uli, our main one. So they had to send two new guides up, and we as a team agreed that if anybody gets COVID, they go down quietly and just say they got altitude sickness and get the hell off the mountain, so we don't all have to go down.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, so that was just a stressful, win at any cost. Make success happen, whatever the cost. Like that's stressful going through that at Concagua. But Uli, he was like, you can always summit. It just depends on what you want to offer up to the mountain. He's like, a finger, a toe, a nose, your life. He's like, you could always make it to the summit, right? But what's it worth to you, right? And so you got to take calculated risks and make sure that you're being wise about it. Getting up is optional, getting down is mandatory. Same thing with being a pilot and flying. It's better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than in the air wishing you were on the ground.
Right.
Right? And so you want to make sure that you're taking calculated risks and making sure you're making the right decisions so you don't end up missing half a hand. Right. Yeah.
So what's the win then for the professional side of you from doing this? I mean, how has it helped you with your real estate? How has it helped you with the company that get said go ahead and do it? Oh, don't worry that it's 20 extra days. We'll wait for
Yeah.
you. What are they
Yeah.
getting out of it?
I've been their top performer, pretty much since I've been there. And they know that this was a life goal of mine. And it came up. It wasn't like I planned for this. I had a friend that I met on Everest, part of my expedition from Mexico City, and he hit me up in mid-November and said, "Hey, I have a friend who broke their collarbone, um, and they were signed up to do Vincent Massif. It was $54,600, and they were idiots and didn't buy trip cancellation insurance. He's looking for someone to take his spot at a discount, even just so he doesn't lose all his 55 grand. Do you want to take his spot at a discount?" And I just got back from climbing a mountain in Russia in July, Mount Elbrus. And getting into Russia was a very stressful situation in the middle of a war. If I
Yeah,
get kidnapped, are they going to trade me for an arms dealer or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that was just stressful, getting my visa to get into Russia, then being there, and then getting out of the country, to where I was kind of like a little burned out on like climbing. I'm like, man, I'm going to take a break from an expedition for like a year or something like that. And then this comes up, and I'm like, man, I feel like this is kind of the universe telling me this is the time to finish the seven summits and to go after it. So I was able to get it for 35 grand and take his spot. So I saved myself $20,000 and went down there. And then, yeah, lo and behold, we're there for over 3 weeks when it should have been like 2 weeks, right? 10 days even maybe. Yeah, that's kind of, how that came up. And so how I got it, I basically told them, this is kind of something that I want to go after right now. It's only going to get more expensive and the expeditions fill up. I only have two options. Like, how do I make this happen and stay here with you guys at this company? Otherwise, my only option to do this, I guess, is to quit. Right? So I told them. And so, I mean, it's kind of like a negotiating tactic. I didn't want to quit. I'm making several $100,000 a year doing something that I love and that I'm good at. Right? I'd rather stay here and keep raking in the money. Right? Well, we'll have a good life, work-life balance. Yeah, so we worked something out to where I was going to take unpaid time off, and it just ended up being longer than they expected. And I found that when I take time off from work, I come back usually rejuvenated and kill it even more than I was before. Because it gives you a little bit of a little mental separation for a second, right? Except when you're coming back from mountains, you're actually you're kind of working the whole time, so it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
going to Europe and doing tours,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and also with Antarctica, I got pneumonia 2 days before the summit. I got a lung infection from some bacteria I got in my lungs, and so I had to summit the highest mountain in Antarctica while battling pneumonia. And so then I, had to recover from that a week after I got back. I was like coughing up like part of my throat line. I was coughing so
Oh,
hard. Yeah, it was nasty. And so like the win for the company is like they just get an excited employee. They don't really go around customers and tell them like everything that I did, right? So it's not like, hey, bragging about, come buy this guy's device. He climbed the seven summits. But I think it's just that commitment as a company to their, employees like goals, right? And stuff, like outside of work.
so
And
you found the
Yeah,
right company that sees beyond just the everyday results. They see the lifetime result.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like the long-term, effect and yeah. So I think that's kind of the benefit they got out of it. So yeah.
Mm. And I bet you
Yeah.
that there is some sort of a engage. I mean, you're a relationships guy. You build relationships. You deliver value. You
Hmm.
lift. You guys are all lifting each other up as you go. There's got to
Hmm.
be something where you get better customers because they're into this sort of thing and it's not just doing their job. Now they want to dig deeper into your relationship and they want to maybe go climb a mountain with you and they want to spend more time having coffee with you. So it's not on purpose that the
Yeah.
company's winning, but they do. The company's got great culture.
Mhm.
Belmont Medical, shout out to Belmont Medical for a great culture. And
For
probably
sure.
they're a strong company and they can sell things for 2 to 3 times as much as the other companies selling an inferior product for,
Mhm.
because everybody's bought in and everybody's more than just an employee. They're kind of
Yeah.
feeling partners.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I forgot to do this, but if
Yeah.
you want to check out Nate Instagram, it's at 8Dougie, Douggy. Instagram's 8Dougie, Douggy. You can check out some of
Yeah.
the photos, which is how we found
Yeah.
them. I do have
Yeah.
one more question to ask you, and I got to respect your time. We are going a little over, excuse me, but
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. For sure.
you're
Yeah.
damn interesting. At some point in time, if this sounds like a lot of sacrifices to me, but there was
Mhm.
one way back in time that bothered you, you didn't want to do it, and you look back, you're like, I cannot believe I even worried about that. Thank God I made that sacrifice. What was it from your earlier days?
Oh, from my earlier days, like something that I made a sacrifice for that I didn't, that I'm like, man, I can't believe that I really worried about that and it ended up being not a big deal, kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like back in college, I was in a fraternity, and you go through like the whole pledge process earlier on, and that kind of sucks. But you build camaraderie with your clear class, right? And then you become like, a year later, and you get to be like the one who doesn't have to go through that. And so going through the rush process with like the younger guys is a lot of fun. And so the fraternities do a lot of events over summer for we call them rush events, and man, I literally wasn't able to do really like more than like one rush event the entire summer because I was doing college works. And I felt like I was like kind of giving up like a lot of my college experience by doing that, because I was just focusing on the social side of it. But I mean, looking back now, I'm just like, I mean, how dumb, right? I mean, I skipped a couple parties so that I could make 20 grand, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. 40,
it,
40 grand in today's dollars.
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean back then, man, I mean, 21K back in, 2005, I mean that's like big money. Everybody as a
Yeah,
waitress is making 2 to 3 grand a summer,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they're working weekends and stuff too. And so they're, living a miserable life, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you really didn't make a sacrifice. You made a customization.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. So I didn't fully give up something. I still try to make some time for my personal life because I think that's important. You can't be completely all into your personal life and not get anything done in life. That's how you end up, like one of the Seattle homeless, maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
And vice
Yeah,
versa. And vice
yeah, and vice
versa.
versa.
You
Yeah,
got to have
exactly. Right.
balance.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Last thing before I let you go, because
Mhm.
we do some
Yeah.
video. You got
Mhm.
your flags, your Buddhist prayer flags. You got your
Yeah.
8K hat on. What do
Yeah.
these mean?
Yeah, yeah. So, in Nepal, there's something magical about climbing in the Himalaya just because of how special these people view the mountain and how much high regard they hold Everest in. You have to have what's called a puja, which is a prayer ceremony with like an altar before anyone's allowed to enter the Khumbu icefall. And you know what? It's wild. There's one guy who wasn't able to make the puja, and he ended up getting pulmonary edema when he went into the Khumbu icefall and had to go all the way back down, and basically go to the hospital for a few days and then come back up and restart kind of his acclimatization all over again. And so there, I mean, whether you believe in superstition or any god or whatnot, right? There's still something magical to people who do, and them being kind of around you when all this is going on. So the prayer flags are kind of from the Nepali. They're kind of all around Nepal. They set them up over your base camp, and yeah, it's just something special, about being there around the highest mountain in the world. They call it Chomolungma or Sagamartha, goddess of the earth, kind of thing, right? And so it's really special to them. And then 8K, this is the expedition and logistics company I used to climb Everest. And their owner actually reached out to me after I summited Aconcagua. He saw some of my posts on Instagram, and he was like, "Hey, did you ever think about doing Everest?" I was like, "No." It
Yeah,
hadn't even like
yeah,
really crossed my mind at that point, right? And he asked for my summit resume. I mean, I've climbed like, over 30 mountains around the world, like the Matterhorn, Eiger, Mont Blanc, right? It's down in the Andes and other stuff. So I got some good experience. And he kind of like talked me into thinking about it. I talked to some other people. And so I really love 8K because, one, there's 14 8,000 meter peaks in the world. So that's what 8K stands for,
yeah,
8,000. And then, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for this company and them, I never would have done Everest,
Mm.
right? I mean, maybe I would have done it someday, but I wouldn't have done it when I did it,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, I mean, it's Everest, it's dangerous, it's scary, there's dead bodies, right? It's like a long time, 45 to 60 days, to acclimate and climb the mountain, weather windows and everything. No, it was just something where like 8K like really pushed me to get outside my comfort zone and really pushed me to take on this challenge. And had that not happened, this wouldn't have happened in my life. And man, what a life change. It's the happiest day of my life was being on the summit of Mount Everest. I had
Mm.
the summit to myself for half an hour, not
Wow.
another soul in sight.
Because you were
Um,
fastest?
I was one of the faster ones on that summit day. I was
Wow.
like the second. Me and my guide Tashi, my Sherpa, were able to. I think we're the second team on the day to summit.
Wow.
But yeah, there wasn't any line or anything. That only happens if there's like one weather window in a season. Then like
Oh,
300, because you only get 300 permits a year in Everest. Right?
right.
350 clients a year, because there's only 2 weeks you can really summit it to go from base camp to the summit when the jet stream is not like 150 miles per hour
Okay.
going through the summit. So yeah, those lines they can happen, but they don't. It's not the norm.
Wow.
But the media likes to take it and run with it. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
Everest is so crowded. It's like a
Yeah.
Disneyland line, but it's not like that at all. I mean, any mountain's gonna have bottlenecks. I mean, Mount Rainier gets 10,000 summit attempts a year.
Wow.
Mont Blanc gets 30,000 a year.
Wow.
Everest gets 350 client permits a year typically. Right? Maybe
Wow. Wow.
maybe maybe 450 on like a busy year.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, and then the Sherpa on top of it. Right? So, yeah, it's yeah. But anyways, that's 8K in the Himalaya. Essentially in the Nepali and the Buddhist prayer flags. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I do have to point
Yep.
you in the direction of public speaking and book writing
Yeah.
because I think that you could crush it. I mean, all these lessons that you have that you brought with us today around relationships, around training so much it seems easy, around top performers know where to spend their time. There's just so much in here that goes from mountain climbing to business. I think you could have a fourth leg to your stool and
Start doing some public speaking or
be this
something for
public
sure.
speaking book writer. And I think your fee should be $17,500 for your first speech. That's just what I'm saying. Uh,
17,500. All right.
and that's an hour.
Yeah.
A keynote speech. So again,
Great.
if you want to find Nate on Instagram, 8Dougie. Nate, thank you so much for actually. I don't know if you reached out to Jake or Jake reached out to you, but for being so willing to come on as I believe the only person in college work alumni history to have climbed Mount Everest. I don't know for sure, but I can say definitively the only one to climb the 7 peaks and to do it
Yeah.
in such a short period of time. And then there's the 30 mountains too. I mean, just
Yeah.
kicking ass in all aspects. It doesn't matter if you're just getting it done socially, just getting it done extracurricularly, just getting it done at work. What matters is that you can put the whole thing together. And that's what makes
100%.
interested and interesting people. So thank you so much for making time for your alma mater. You might be the most popular podcast of the season. I hope so. Really
Great.
appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. College Works really changed my life and set all this up. So I'm happy I come hopefully inspire someone else to do some cool shit in their life. So
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
think you did. I
So
think you did. Thank you.
cool, man. All right. See you later.